In Hollywood, when a director has a massive hit, they are treated like gods. People bow to them. Actors beg them for roles. But Denzel Washington doesn't bow to anyone. In 1995, a young hotshot named Quentin Tarantino was the king of the world. He had just made Pulp Fiction, and the studio brought him in to rewrite Denzel's new movie, Crimson Tide. Tarantino walked onto the set expecting everyone to kiss the ring. He started throwing his weight around, giving orders, and trying to tell a master actor how to read his lines. But Tarantino made a fatal mistake. He confused Denzel Washington with a Hollywood pushover. When Tarantino started raising his voice, Denzel didn't scream back. He stepped forward, looked the young genius dead in the eyes, and delivered a reality check so brutal that the entire crew went dead silent. This is the untold story of the day Denzel Washington reminded Hollywood's biggest ego, who was really in charge. Denzel Washington is not your typical movie star. He is a disciplined, family-oriented man who takes his craft seriously. He is known for being intellectual, sharp, and scary smart in interviews. He doesn't seek out the spotlight for the sake of attention. He seeks it out to deliver commanding performances that earn him deep respect from his peers and audiences alike. His approach to acting is rooted in old-school values, discipline, respect, and hard work. He is the intellectual version of the tough guy, someone who commands a room without screaming or throwing tantrums. In a modern Hollywood often defined by diva behavior and massive egos, Denzel Washington stands apart as a consummate professional. He shows up on time, knows his lines, and trusts the process, but he also knows his worth and will not tolerate disrespect. He is the type of man who schools arrogant actors or shuts down disrespectful reporters with just a few well-chosen words. He is a man who knows that talent gets you in the room, but discipline keeps you there. This no-nonsense attitude would inevitably clash with the explosive, ego-driven energy that was about to arrive on the set of Crimson Tide. To understand the confrontation, we must first examine the meteoric rise of Quentin Tarantino. By 1995, Tarantino was not just a successful director, he was a cultural phenomenon. His 1992 debut, Reservoir Dogs, had established him as a fresh, exciting voice in independent cinema. But it was Pulp Fiction in 1994 that truly conquered the film world. Pulp Fiction was a revelation. It blended sharp, profane dialogue with non-linear storytelling and sudden, graphic violence in a way that audiences had never seen before. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival and earned Tarantino an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. The film was a critical and commercial smash, and it transformed Tarantino into the most powerful and sought-after writer and director in Hollywood. Studio executives clamored to work with him. Actors were desperate for a single line of his dialogue. He was celebrated as a genius and an auteur who had single-handedly saved American cinema. This praise, while arguably deserved, also fueled a massive ego. Tarantino was known for his manic energy, his rapid-fire way of speaking, and an intense, almost evangelical belief in his own vision. By 1995, Quentin Tarantino wasn't just working in Hollywood. He was Hollywood. He believed he could do no wrong, and he arrived on every set with the expectation that everyone was there to serve his genius. He was about to learn that Denzel Washington had other ideas. Crimson Tide was already a major production, a high-stakes submarine thriller starring two other titans of Hollywood, Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. The film was directed by Tony Scott, a respected action filmmaker known for stylish, fast-paced hits like Top Gun and True Romance. The film's premise was intense. A conflict of command on a US nuclear submarine during a global crisis. Hackman played the battle-hardened, traditional Captain Ramsey, and Denzel was the more cerebral, by-the-book executive officer, Commander Hunter. The movie was built on the palpable tension between these two powerhouse actors, despite having a strong cast and a talented director. The studio was still looking for that extra spark, that sharp, memorable dialogue that Tarantino was famous for. So, they brought him in as an uncredited script doctor. This is a common practice in Hollywood. A famous writer is paid a high fee to rewrite specific scenes and punch up the dialogue without receiving formal credit. When Tarantino arrived on set, he didn't just quietly sit in a corner and rewrite pages. He brought his full Pulp Fiction energy with him. He was vocal, he was opinionated, and he was eager to see his words brought to life. But in his excitement to imprint his genius on the film, he forgot a fundamental rule of professional collaboration. You must always respect the people you are working with. He was about to test that rule against the most disciplined man in Hollywood. The day of the confrontation began like any other on a high-pressure film set. The cast and crew were working long hours. The air was tense with the demands of production, and everyone was focused on delivering their best work. Denzel Washington was preparing for a critical scene, a moment of high dramatic conflict that required intense focus and emotional preparation. He was a master of his craft, known for his deep, nuanced performances that were the result of meticulous work and a stoic approach. He knew what the scene needed, and he knew how to deliver it. Tarantino, fresh from his Pulp Fiction triumph, was on set, watching the rehearsal. He was vocal with his suggestions, his feedback, and his critiques. While this type of input is sometimes tolerated from a celebrated script doctor, there is a fine line between providing creative notes and overstepping your bounds. Tarantino crossed that line. In full view of the entire cast and crew, he publicly critiqued Denzel Washington's performance. He didn't just offer a subtle suggestion. He began trying to school Denzel on how to read his lines, telling a multiple Oscar winner how to do his job. And then, fueled by his own ego and perhaps a lack of impulse control, Tarantino started raising his voice. The entire set went instantly dead silent. No one had ever witnessed such a thing on a professional production. The director, Tony Scott, reportedly looked on in stunned disbelief. But if Tarantino expected Denzel Washington to be intimidated by a screaming hotshot, he had miscalculated completely. When Denzel Washington is faced with disrespect, he does not explode in anger or throw a diva tantrum. He responds with a stoic, commanding intensity that can be more terrifying than any scream. He is a man who knows that quiet power is often the most effective. As Tarantino raised his voice in front of the entire crew, Denzel Washington did not flinch. He didn't interrupt or begin a shouting match. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and looked Quentin Tarantino dead in the eyes. Denzel is a man who shuts down disrespectful people with just a few well-chosen words. He is known for schooling arrogant behavior, not with volume, but with a razor-sharp intelligence that cuts right through ego and pretense. In that moment of tense silence, with every eye on the set watching, Denzel Washington delivered a reality check that was as precise as it was brutal. He didn't need to scream. His quiet, intense focus was all the authority required to end the disrespect. The message was clear. Your genius might get you in the room, but only discipline and respect will keep you there. He was about to remind Tarantino exactly who was really in charge of this set. The reaction on set was immediate and absolute. This wasn't a schoolyard shouting match. This was a moment of true, powerful authority asserting itself against arrogant behavior. The entire set went dead silent. Asterisk, asterisk. Directors are often seen as the absolute masters of their set, but they only maintain that authority through the respect of their cast and crew. Quentin Tarantino, despite his accolades and genius, was currently acting as a guest, a powerful one, but a guest nonetheless, by disrespecting Denzel Washington in front of the entire crew. He had fractured the professional trust that is essential for a successful production. Denzel's response, characterized by quiet intensity and intellectual sharpness, re-established the professional hierarchy. He didn't just end the confrontation. He ended any pretense that Tarantino's ego was more important than the craft or the team. Tarantino, according to reports, backed down. This was a man who was used to getting his own way, to having his vision celebrated without question. But in that silent, powerful confrontation with Denzel Washington, he had met a force that would not be intimidated by hype or reputation. The silence of power had triumphed over the noise of ego, and in doing so, Denzel Washington had not only protected his own dignity, but had also preserved the integrity of the entire production. The immediate effect of this confrontation was clear. Tarantino's attempts to dictate to Denzel Washington stopped, but the untold legacy of that day goes far deeper than a simple backstage feud. This incident is more than just gossip. It's a story that illustrates a fundamental clash between two different types of Hollywood power: the explosive, often volatile energy of celebrated genius versus the stoic, enduring power of discipline and professional respect for Denzel Washington. This confrontation solidified his reputation as a silent legend, a professional who would not be bullied or disrespected by anyone, regardless of their reputation. It's a moment that his fans admire, a true story of a high-stakes gambler who bet on his own integrity and won. It's part of the narrative that makes him a father figure to many, a man who schools arrogant behavior and reminds us that true power is intellectual and disciplined, not loud and chaotic. For Quentin Tarantino, it may have been a rare and perhaps valuable lesson, while he continued to have an incredibly successful career. This story serves as a reminder that talent gets you in the room, but discipline keeps you there. The most brilliant writer or director in the world is still part of a team, and true genius is never an excuse for disrespect. Ultimately, Crimson Tide was a critical and commercial success, praised for its intense performances, particularly from Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. We can only wonder how much of that disciplined, commanding performance from Denzel was fueled by the memory of the day he had to remind Hollywood's biggest genius who was really in charge, in a town often defined by manufactured personas and carefully curated images. The story of Denzel Washington and Quentin Tarantino stands out as a moment of undeniable, authentic truth. It is easy to celebrate the explosive, unpredictable energy of a genius like Tarantino. We are drawn to his sharp dialogue, his non-linear stories, and his unique visual style. But true genius is not just about raw talent or a powerful vision. It is about the discipline to respect the craft and the people you work with. Denzel Washington is a man who schools arrogant behavior and shuts down disrespectful people, not with loud tantrums, but with a quiet, commanding intensity that leaves an entire set dead silent. He is the intellectual tough guy who reminds us that competence, not ego, is the true measure of a man. The confrontation on the set of Crimson Tide was not just a feud. It was a lesson. It was a moment where a man of quiet power reminded a loud genius that silence is often the most profound statement of all. True greatness doesn't need to scream to be heard. It just needs to stand its ground with discipline and respect. This channel is dedicated to the stories Hollywood wants you to forget. The moments that reveal the true character behind the untold silent legends. If you believe that competence over chaos and respect over reputation are the true markers of a legend, then you belong here. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Join us as we continue to uncover the true, untold stories of the men who let their work and their disciplined silence speak for itself. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Welcome to Untold Silent Legends.